also been told that Owen has until the 6th of March to appeal. Is that right? Yeah. And yeah, no doubt he will try. I just want to add to what Tim has said, that we need to be conscious of what a sensitive position the receiver is in. I know that it's been reported in the Gazette and that he's told that the fan reps that his priority, of course, is selling the club and getting the best possible deal. But he does understand that the football club is different to any other business. Whilst he has to do the right thing, and we don't want to be giving the Oystons any reason to be challenging the way he's running things, but he, along with the judge, understand that this football club is so much more than just a normal business, that there's so many people who are affected by what happens to it, and that absolutely is why the role that we, all of us, not just BST or TKs or muckers or anybody else, but every single one of us that's contributed has been so pivotal. So it is a day for being happy. It is a day for congratulating ourselves because we have fought so hard. And Tony here and I are on the National Council now, the National Fans Council, and all I can tell you is that they are so aware of what Blackpool fans have done. We are totally unique. There are lots of problems in football and lots of clubs, technically bigger clubs than ours, that have got issues, but none of them have done what we have done. It's absolutely staggering when you think about it. So we have succeeded. I know that there's still the spectre of Owen finding this money down the back of the sofa. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And if it does, we continue because the power lies with us. Never doubt that, because it always has, and we've proved that. So moving forward, together, unity is how we've succeeded so far, and we need to bring everybody. We need to be totally inclusive because we are all Blackpool fans. So I haven't got anything else unless anybody else has got. Oh, sorry, there's a question coming. Sorry.
There's one question that's coming, Christine, and this has been said before, and we've never ever made this happen. But can we get a singers section in the ground so that we can absolutely, or can we put that forward? And the second one is, can we issue the fertilised band to Lenny John Rose for his comments this week?
Yeah, I'm not sure everybody heard that.
Yeah, the singing section is a singing section.
A singing section, is that so we can sing the Nolan song? Probably someone. Okay, so we've also, of course, we started this volunteers register. I'm sure a lot of you have already emailed this gentleman here, whose email is about to explode. It's, again, fantastic that this is a community that's coming together, and how wonderful that once we can get inside the club, we can perhaps help in any way that's required. We know that they must be on the bare bones. The staff that are in there will struggle massively to cope with thousands of people suddenly coming back. So for us to be able to offer our services is tremendous, and I do know that that is an idea that the receiver was very, very impressed with. So again, keep the volunteers coming. Please keep emailing Tony, because he hasn't got enough to do. And that's tremendous. One other thing. Please join Blackpool Supporters Trust if you haven't done so already. I'm sure you nearly all are now. This is not about one organisation being better than another or more important than another. A supporters trust gives so much power, if you like, and security to football fans. We are the umbrella organisation for all football fans, so you can be a mucker and be in the trust, you can be in BSA and be in the trust, or the Tangerine Knights or Basil or anything, because it is about all of us. It's legal, it's legally a legal entity. It's democratic. If you don't like what the committee are doing, you can boot us off. That's how it should be. So we are all Blackpool Supporters Trust. So when we say BST have done this and BST have done that, we're talking about all of us collectively. It's not about me, it's not about Tim or Tony or Steve or anybody else. It's all of us. And moving forward, this is a very critical time. New owners especially will need a vehicle to deal with, and they'll want to engage with fans, but they can't engage with everybody individually. So it makes absolute sense for us all to come under this umbrella. We are one of the leading trusts, probably the leading trust in the country, because of what we've been through. So let's make the most of that, and you guys make us what we are, powerful, a voice, and we will keep fighting for all of us. Thank you. Very much for that. Does anybody have any questions now? Let's just have general questions.
So just got a quick one, Christine.
Go on, do you want me to do it?
When you were going through the receivership about the intercompany loans, would they still be payable back to the football club by the other Oyston companies? What happens with those? Because there's millions gone missing.
The first thing you've got to bear in mind is in relation to the football club, all the loans were actually made to, virtual loans made to Suggester, which obviously also comes under Paul Cooper's remit. The more difficult scenario comes in relation to what Suggester that might then have lent out, who they've lent it out to, and whether there's any realistic prospects of getting monies back. I think we've seen from the various blogs done by the fan base that there's obviously serious concerns there as to whether limited companies have the actual ability to pay the money back. Most of it's cascaded down and gone wherever it's gone. So Paul's focus will be on just getting the football club and those assets sold. That's his role, not an investigative accountant to go tracing monies. It's got to be remembered that at the end of the day, Bellicon there's a finite amount, it's 25 million plus change. So that's where his focus will lie, getting that back. And obviously whether he can get it all back from Suggester remains to be seen.
Excuse me. Just wondering, on the ongoing finances for the football club, who is going to bankrupt?
We heard in court that insofar as there's a shortfall to the receiver, that Valeria Bellicon was prepared to underwrite the costs. So there wouldn't be any short-term risk of the football club being unable to fulfil fixtures, not paid players or anything of that nature. Obviously, until Paul gets it in, he may know this now. If he has, obviously, he wouldn't necessarily tell us. He doesn't know how much is in the bank account. He doesn't know how much will be in the bank accounts when he actually takes possession of them. So there may be some healthy deposits. We've got some money in from Grad Potts. We've got money in from some quite high-profile fixtures against Arsenal and Sunderland and the cup run. So there may be a healthy balance. If there isn't, Valeria, as I understand it, is prepared to underwrite, and hopefully we can also make sure that we do our bit by buying tickets, by buying merchandise and spending the money in the football ground like we always used to do in the past.
This one here, sorry, first. This one here first, where you are.
No, after you, Cecil. Right, shall I go?
Yeah.
There's been, according to what I've heard, significant interest in parties looking to by the club. I've heard a figure of 20 mentioned. That won't, it'll whittle down to less than 20, I'm sure. But it's pretty clear also that the position of the trust and the support of the trust is really significant to any successful prospective bidder. And I wondered what you wanted to say on behalf of the trust and on behalf of ourselves about how you're going to take that on.
Yeah, good question, and that is absolutely right. But I think because of what's gone on over the last few years, any investor, anybody that's interested in buying the club knows that engaging with all of us is going to be absolutely critical. Again, that comes back to me saying about having a strong trust, because they're going to want to do it through the trust. So we, of course, will represent people's opinions. That's why members will get a chance to vote on how we go forward. I know there's been issues and discussions about should there be a fan rep on the board, should we have shares in the club. Just as a reminder that the members recently voted overwhelmingly to have some shares in the club, not to own the club outright. Generally speaking, that's not a way that we want to go, but most people do want us to have some involvement so that we're at the table, so that we have a voice. How we manage that, of course, will have to be decided by all of you as members. But we will put that forward, and having that opportunity to do so is vital. And let's say it's absolutely fantastic that we're even talking about that, given how we've been completely ignored for years and years and years.
We'll take that question at the back. Who speak up?
Yeah, you said that the receiver had a meeting with the staff at Blackpool Road and has said to them that providing they're not obstructed, their positions are secure. You've also said that the receiver will appoint a new board. Can you tell us what the position is with Morticia?
It's been kept in the dark.
So the question was, if I put it politely, is what's Natalie's role moving forward? The short answer is we don't know. She's still a director and she's still the CEO as it stands. That decision in the short term rests with Paul Cooper, and we can speculate what value an Oyston brings to the table moving forward, but that is one for him. So the short answer is we don't know. We can guess. We just know, as he said in court, and I think he may also have said to Matt, that it is intended that the existing board will be removed and replaced by some new appointees. So that's as much as we know. So I'm expecting her to be removed from the board, but I don't know for 100% whether that's actually going to happen or not yet. Does that answer?
Well, she's presumably got a contract of employment as an employee of the company.
She will have a contract of employment, and the terms of that contract will need to be honoured. Obviously, we've seen publicly that there's a suggestion that Carl Oyston and Sam Oyston have both brought wages claims against the football club. And they've been adjourned off at the moment. But yes, the terms of Natalie's contract will have to be honoured. I don't know how far that stretches back and what protection it gives her, but from the point of view of making decisions, who's involved and who isn't will fall under the receiver's remit, and what the consequences of people being removed are remains to be seen. But I wouldn't think that's his priority. I think his priority is to make sure that the football club is operated on a professional and an open basis, with him not facing obstructions, and the call's with him. So that's as far as we can take that.
She's not been in employment for 2 years, so she's no.
We can speculate. We don't know whether her existing employment with Lancashire Magazines carries forward in any shape or form. The point's a good one. If she's only been in there 12 months, then she has no employment protection other than the notice she's entitled to under a contract. Knowing them, it'll be about 4 years' notice. But Robbie?
There was a lot of discussion in court about the letter by Mr. Craig from the EFL, and we've also had the announcement of the departure of Sean Harvey. Do you think you could say something about the possible implications of that in terms of the deducted points deduction?
Yeah, for those who weren't there was a letter read out in court that we didn't actually know about that had come from the EFL. We interpreted it as basically the EFL giving themselves a great deal of wriggle room where this 12-point deduction is concerned. And of course, recently we've just heard that Sean Harvey is moving on. Again, I think that there are changes afoot. There's a lot happened in the last few years, and again, Blackpool at the start of that, there's no question about that. We absolutely started shining a light on the EFL. There's been a lot of work gone into it from people like Robbie Whittaker here, who has done huge amounts of research, and you know, to be honest, I'd like you all to give him a round of applause. There's lots of people who've done work behind the scenes, and I have to say, reading through the EFL's regulations is not my idea of a good time. But we've really gone into it in great detail. We've done the protests at the EFL. I hope you've all been able to read the communications we've had. So we've really started to put that pressure on, and now that's being picked up by national organisations, by national media. The EFL are out of their depth, and there's a great deal wrong with football, and there's a great deal that needs to change. And again, I believe that maybe Mr. Harvey being moved on is the start of that change. And we have played a part in that. So I'll be very, very surprised now if the 12-point deduction did actually happen. I would hope it wouldn't, but again, we don't know. We have to wait and see. And it's great that MPs and local councillors and all sorts have really got involved in this. It would be a travesty if points were taken off the team after all of this. But as I say, they've admitted they have got discretion, so let's hope that they use it.
Next question. From Lynn.
Yeah. At the end of the day, when Mr. Belcom gets his 25 million back, what happens to his shareholding? Because we don't want it to be going to Oyston.
We don't. There is, again, that's another thing that has to be faced, that there is a possibility that his 20% share then reverts to Oyston. We understand that there are ways around this, is that the right way to put it? We're very aware of that, and I know Mr. Belcom's legal team are very aware of it. So again, I would just say at this moment in time, I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Question.
That was my question.
The same question.
Yeah.
Next person. Stay there. I'll come there next.
As Blackpool is a community club, and we've got the town council who have obstructed us because of certain people's friendship with Oyston. Has their role been discussed by the receiver, and will we as supporters have a say as to what we think of how the council have treated us?
Yes, I believe that there is. I don't know if he's spoken with them yet, but he's interested in everybody, all stakeholders, and of course the council have a role to play. What I will say to you is we've actually tabled an open letter to Mr. Oyston, basically just calling on him to let go. We were going to do this earlier, but of course events have overtaken us. But we have asked for local councillors, including Simon Blackburn, to sign this. We've got ex-players who've agreed. We've got sort of agreement from some MPs. But Mr. Blackburn so far has not replied to us in any way. Yeah, what I would remind everybody and the people of Blackpool is that there are local elections this May, so perhaps we can resolve the problem.
And if we come down to you.
Yeah, I was just going to add, one of the things that the receiver will have to do is talk to Blackpool Council straight away about the ground safety of those stands, because some of them haven't been used for a while. They need to assure themselves that they'll be fit for use on the 9th of March.
Yeah, so obviously for the 9th of March game, for the Southend game, we need to maximise sale tickets. I think I'm right to say at the moment you can't buy tickets through the website, so when will that be up and running and so on and so on? I know they're going to advertise ticket sales or to buy tickets for that game.
The short answer to that is, and I think Paul Cooper would also say the same thing, that's a job for the new board. So he won't be involved in the day-to-day running of the football club. At the end of the day, he's an insolvency practitioner with no experience of those day-to-day involvements. So when the new board is put in place, clearly the ticketing arrangements for a week, 2 weeks today, what will then be a week on Saturday, will be of paramount importance. And as Steve's mentioned, there's things like, if the East is going to be opened, or if the away fans are going to be put in the East to accommodate more Blackpool fans in the traditional home ends, how can that be accommodated? Will it breach ground regulations? Will it breach any planning permission obligations? And will it satisfy the police? So there's all those different stakeholders in those type of safety decisions, which of course always have to be of paramount importance, will come into play. So I would have thought that's very, very high on the top of the list of priorities for whoever's coming in to actually run the club, who I hope is somebody with prior experience. In fact, I would expect it's somebody who's got prior experience of dealing with not this unique situation here, but at least the day-to-day running of a football club, which is going to be crucially important.
Same for somebody over there once.
Yeah, so it's just maybe a bit of clarification. Valerie's stated sort of position has always been that he wanted to be a minority shareholder with a local partner. Does the EFL backing stop him being a minority shareholder? Is it just as a majority shareholder?
It doesn't stop him being a shareholder, because of course he still is, notwithstanding the ban. What it does stop him being, at the moment, is a relevant person, in inverted commas, which is defined in the EFL rules, which I know like the back of my hand these days, but includes directors, senior employees, anybody who's influencing decisions. So at the moment, Valeri can't take an active role in the football club, and indeed I don't think would want to at this stage. Moving forward, I think he said in his New Year release that he intended to tackle the EFL. Now, what he does and when he does it is a matter for him, but it would make sense that he did that if he was going to have an ongoing role, and obviously he could continue to take a back seat until that position is clarified by the EFL, if he's going to be involved moving forward with a UK-based investor. Because it is right, he said, right from when myself and Steve Smith went to see him back in March 2014, he said the way I operate all the way around the world is with, as a minority shareholder, with a local partner or local investor. That's where that local comes from. But what he means is obviously somebody in that jurisdiction who knows what they're doing. And that's the way he's always operated, and that's the way I think he would continue to operate. I hope he stays involved, but we can't shy away from the fact that at the moment he's banned under the rules, and unless he gets that lifted, it can only be effectively as a silent partner.
Phil, Bramble? No, I just got the right question.
All right, Nick. Sorry, Phil, you got one more?
Sorry, just cover this.
All right, same point. Is there anybody else there?
Who's actually paying for...
sorry, just stood there behind you. I'll come to you next.
If Owen loses control of the football club in the next few weeks, and then in a few months' time he finds the money, is he not technically barred then from taking control back under the EFL rules of not unfit and proper version?
Interesting. It's something that we've thought about already. So those who didn't hear the question was, if Owen loses his status as director, relevant person, when the board's removed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever that is next week, would he have to reapply, and would he then breach the owners and directors test by not fulfilling the requirements? What I would say is there's an ongoing obligation to comply. He's in breach. He's clearly in breach. And we would be making very vociferous representations to the EFL. Well, I think that point that the gentleman mentioned probably gives the EFL an opportunity to impose the ban, where I think they're a bit embarrassed. My gut reaction is they're a bit embarrassed at the moment that they've turned a blind eye to it all these years, or misunderstood their rules all these years. But they've always said it's at the, which it isn't, it's at the point of access, or the point of entry. So a new point of entry, I think, would give them a classic get out of being able to say you're banned. And I would hope they would do that. Any next one? There, stood up and then to you.
Where's the Football Association $1 million? Where did it? Where's the Football Association $1 million? Where's the Football Association?
Absolutely. Answer came there none. This is why we've been trying to sort of fight the football authorities in a way and highlight the issues there, because the Blackpool case, along with many other clubs, has shown that there just is there's no policeman, there's no one for us to turn to, and it's totally wrong. We need proper regulation of the game. Football is broken in so many ways. So although our priority has always been our football club and sorting out our problem, but we've learnt over the last few years how the framework within which football operates simply is not fit for purpose. And again, we've been shining a light on this, we've done so much work on it, and other clubs and the media are now really picking up on this. So, and indeed politicians. So that's the way it has to go. Change is always very slow, and don't we know it? But things will change, and it does look like that there's been a sort of change in the way the authorities are viewing this now.
Yeah, just one quick thing to add. This 20, 24, 25, however many people it is, are expressing interest in the club. They've got to prove they've got the money to buy it in the first place. They've also got to prove to the FA and the EFL that they're fit and proper owners. Now, we know how that's worked in the past, so we've got to make sure that we keep pressure up on both those authorities to do a bloody good job of vetting whoever wants to buy the club next.
Can I just say, just as an ex-player, I think you've done a great job. I was a bit horrified, if this is right, that the players actually clean their own kit. And is it also true that Pauline O'Rourke's offered to do it on a Sunday when she's doing nothing?
I'm not a keep, ladies and gentlemen. I'll let Pauline answer that one to me. Any more questions, folks?
Just got one. It's a two-part. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, but while he's going down there, we'll do yours first. Yeah, we'll come to him second while he's going down. So, do you want to go on?
Just like two parts.
We'll get
First one, obviously it's a little bit ahead, but we all know there's money missing from the club. We all know roughly, allegedly, who's taking it. Will we ever be able to get that money back? The second part is, can anybody stand and guarantee we will never see an Oyston in Bloomfield Road? Can we ban them for life and never see their win?
To answer the first question, no. Valeri got effectively on what the judge felt had unequivocally been taken, was given parity, which at the end of the day is bringing about regime, well, almost certainly bringing about regime change, and for that we can be glad. But the money that we thought would be made available to build the future of Blackpool, the training ground we wanted, that we were also passionate about, and the sort of situation we see at Fleetwood, to have had that at Blackpool was what most of us wanted to see as the legacy. That's lost. All we can try and make sure is that the next owner that comes in is the type of person who has the vision to try and replicate that type of situation that we should already have, because it's a money-making exercise as well. They're not doing it effectively for charity. If you have a facility like that in Blackpool, it'll be used virtually 24/7 and be a licence to print money, as well as being a fantastic training facility and a community facility. So it actually makes business sense, but we're not going to tracing money wherever it's gone is at the end of the day, under English law, subject to the action of the Valeri Board. You can do what you want with the money, and that's where it's wrong. You know, if clubs were operated on it in a different way, say on the German model, then it could never happen because they don't know what individual has control, other than a few exceptions. So, but that's the makeup of football in this country, and owners control what happens with it, and unfortunately, it's not ours. In legal parlance, it's theirs.
It's gone.
Yes, it's gone. Sorry, just remind me, what's the second part of the question? That would ultimately be down to a new owner. I don't think Paul Cooper would impose any restriction of that type on the Oystons attending a game. They do also, of course, have a lot of other businesses currently based in the stadium. Owen has what I think now is a lease of the penthouse. And those things have got to be looked at by the receiver and or by a new owner. But that's the situation that we're faced with. The important thing is, from our perspective, is that he has no control of that football club. If he's physically still there, I'm quite sure that people will make it clear that they don't consider him to be welcome. And you wouldn't think that you'd put yourself in that situation. But then again, we're not. I don't think he quite thinks the way that you and I think. So we'll have to see. Well, I don't think Paul will ban them, and what an owner does will be a matter of discretion for them. But can you ban somebody who's prepared to pay to come into the ground? I don't know.
Back there. At the moment, everything's been guaranteed to carry on. Are those guarantees in place for next season as well?
Guarantees from?
Financially to carry on, shortfall by?
The short answer is Valeri, as I understand it, and it was only touched upon very briefly, Valeri had promised to underwrite any shortfalls during the period of the receivership. How long the receivership lasts remains to be seen. But I don't think Paul Cooper envisages being here at the start of next season. That's not to say he won't be. I don't think he envisages that. So then it would be up to a new owner. And as Steve has already said, any new owner coming in has to satisfy the owners and directors test, which for a new owner includes an obligation of being able to show that you can not only afford to buy the football club and that you meet the criteria to be an owner, but you also have to be able to show that you've got the financial wherewithal not to crash and burn at a very early stage.
What if it is a little bit prolonged?
Well, if it is prolonged, my understanding is that Valeri is offered to underwrite. What you've got to bear in mind as well is the Blackpool Football Club, the holding company, has some fairly significant assets. The Travelodge, which is easily and readily marketable for sale, brings in rents of £550,000 a year. That's a very attractive proposition for a commercial investor and could bring a cash injection into the football club, which so Valeri could leave some of that in effectively. We've also got other assets such as the Quirnwall Park Hall that's also potentially saleable. There are also rents coming in from the NHS, which the receiver is going to be in control of, and from the other tenants at Bloomfield Road. But hopefully the big cash injection is going to come from the ticket sales and the commercial opportunities that are going to present itself for people. You only have to go to any other ground to see how many advertising boards there are there, to see how full of adverts programmes are, and the scoreboards, and all the commercial hospitality rooms are taken. These are the revenue streams that will hopefully ensure that the receiver isn't going knocking on Valeri's door saying, I need a top-up to make ends meet. I'd like to think it's not going to involve any sale of players. Obviously that would only be happening in the summer anyway. But Paul's remit is to get it sold and not to hold on to it for any longer than he needs to.
Item, you said that Oyston had until the 6th of March to appeal. How would that affect the process going forward if he appealed?
Yeah, we did ask that question on Monday when Christine and I met with Paul. Bear in mind, it's an application for permission to appeal on the 6th. So, as I think I touched upon it, I think I strayed off it a bit too early when I was talking before. The application for permission to appeal stage is to stop pointless appeals. So effectively, you have 2 bites of the cherry, one at the hearing and then one which can be done within 21 days. And that's to submit a written request to be allowed to appeal. That then gets reviewed by the Court of Appeal in this case. And if the Court of Appeal don't feel there's sufficient merit, then they'll reject it. And there's nowhere else you can go. So, answering the question, if permission is granted, then Paul Cooper's view was that there might be constraints imposed upon him not to sell whilst the appeal was still live. So that might be one of the scenarios where the receivership could be extended. He didn't think it would result, and I wouldn't think it would result in the receivership being lifted pending the appeal. He would be enrolled, we would be able to go. This is why we've got to look at it match by match at the moment. We would be able to go to the games. He would be able to market it for sale, but couldn't complete a sale until such time as an appeal was dealt with. But I wouldn't concern yourself too much about that, because I would be astounded if he got permission to appeal. And I may end up eating my words on that, but I really would be shocked. He's applying for permission at every stage. We found out about application for permission to appeal when we were in court, didn't we? That we didn't even know about. Every single order he's appealed or tried to appeal, and every single time he's been told no. So, is it going to change? I think it's highly unlikely. You've got an experienced judge, as I said before, exercising his discretion and saying, Owen Oyston, you're a hindrance, we're putting a receiver in. He's going to the Court of Appeal, having not paid anything for over 12 months, and owes, despite supposedly having assets worth over £100 million, and going to the court and saying that's the wrong decision. I just cannot see how he's going to satisfy anybody to give it the time of day. So hopefully that reassures everybody that that isn't likely to interfere with the process to any significant degree. On the front here.
If all the Premier League millions have disappeared through the club, wouldn't the HMRC have an interest in about that?
They may, but then you're presupposing that they've not been accounted for properly. They may well have done. So it's beyond my knowledge as to what's happened in relation to the tax implications, but I would be surprised if the HMRC haven't been keeping a close eye on things and hopefully satisfying themselves that the right thing has been done in relation to the tax treatment of those monies. But I'm not an accountant, I don't profess to know in any great detail as to how they would view it and whether they would take any action. People, of course, are always at liberty to contact them and suggest that they should look at things closer, and I'd be very, very surprised if that hasn't already been done on multiple occasions. That's it for now.
Moving ahead, we are going to be a community club. Can you confirm or deny whether our 2 local MPs were invited to this meeting and declined, or have ignored it, or if there's representatives here making themselves available
by our 2 local MPs, I'm presuming Gordon Marsden and Paul Maynard. We didn't invite them specifically to this meeting, particularly weekends. I know they're not necessarily always in the area. Both of them have given us quite a lot of support along the way, so I can't say they haven't, because they have. And latterly, Gordon Marsden particularly, he put forward like an early day motion about the 12-point deduction, and we've had regular meetings with him. We've got meetings set up with other Fylde Coast MPs too, or we're trying to get some. So again, I think it's very much they've come on board latterly, shall we say, maybe not right at the start, but to be fair, particularly to Gordon and to Paul, they have been supportive, yes.
And we're meeting with Cat Smith on the 1st of March as well.
Anybody else? We'll try not to go too much longer, I think. So, maybe last few questions. Anybody?
Yeah, I was going to ask earlier.
Go on, yeah.
Who's actually paying for Paul Cooper's services? Because there'd be a delicious irony if that's coming out of Owen Oyston's pocket and he's actually paying the very man who's going to remove him from his position.
Well, I'm glad to say that what you just said is actually what happens. The cost of the receivership is charged to the debt. So not that bad, that means it's added to the debt. It's a cost of enforcement, and I think they've been given the green light to work with the fixed fee, which was £1.25 million. So that will be added to the amount that has to be raised to clear the debt. So yes, Owen Oyston is paying for his own removal. Any last couple of questions before I hand it back and we wrap things up? Have we covered everything? Just gentleman here.
You mentioned phase 1 and phase 2, and in phase 1 the receiver doesn't have control of the account. Is there any suspicion, I shouldn't call it suspicion, but any evidence that the Oystons are actually busy taking money out of the Blackpool Football Club account in the meantime?
The short answer to that is no. I don't know whether Paul knows any more about that. He would have to answer that question. He went in on Thursday with, as I understand it, some support to start the audit process. What that reveals about whether money is there, that's not then there when he takes physical control, I don't know. I literally can't answer. But the concern is, which is why Paul has suggested that we don't give the green light for people to start buying tickets who want to remain not a penny more compliant, is because of that perceived risk.
Anybody else? We come one gentleman there.
Yeah. How come 12 points is set in stone? Why is it 12 points and not 6 or 8 points?
Because the rules say that. So in simple terms, if you ever want to look at the rules, just Google VFL rules, and under the governance section, it's in section 12 of part 1, I think, it deals with the sanctions for insolvency events, which this is one. And it's fixed at the first offence is fixed as a 12-point deduction, but because it's Blackpool Football Club properties or suggester that's actually in receivership, not Blackpool, it's not automatic, it's discretionary, and there's 4 specific grounds that have to be taken into account. And if you remember the EFL, the letter sort of touched on some of those, and it's about protecting the integrity of the league, it's about can you fulfil the fixtures and other criteria. Obviously, from our perspective, what we do see is a situation where the rules, we believe, were brought in to deal with a particular scenario, which was clubs overspending and then doing the crash and burn I spoke about before. Portsmouth was probably a good example of that, where they brought in players on very, very high salaries, won the FA Cup. Bradford did the same, didn't they, when they were in the Premiership? Brought in certain players on ridiculous contracts that they couldn't service once they got relegated. And that was the perceived advantage of having of overspending was the reason why the sanctions were applied. What nobody could ever accuse Blackpool of is having benefited in any shape or form from what's happened in the last 4 years. And Andy sort of jovially walking down the back before said we should actually give him a point credit. If anything, that's what it should be, because the likes of Terry and his team and Gary before him have been working effectively in a period of austerity from their perspective, which makes it all the more incredible that we're sat where we are in the league and not right at the bottom as we were when we were under the tenure of Lee Clark and Neil MacDonald, etc. So,
Tim, that the powers on the point deduction do actually include a discretion to suspend all.
Yeah, that's the point, and it was something we picked up on before. So there is also the possibility. What we've got to bear in mind is that it's the lead chairman or the lead chairman who are on the board who will make the decision about the points deduction. Of course, Carl was famously on the board, wasn't he, at one time? So it's a little bit like turkeys voting for Christmas in some respects, isn't it? In that, you know, if that points deduction to us actually benefits their team, might they let that influence their decision in some way? We don't know. However, it's understood that the executive, which is Sean Harvey and the other people who sit on the EFL hierarchy, do retain a discretion to suspend any points deduction that's applied, and that is one of the avenues that I suspect Paul Cooper will look at, along with the possibility of not getting the points deduction in the first place. So we are in a unique situation. I don't think anybody's been in this scenario before. I'm not aware of any other court receivership before. There's no unsecured debt of any significance. We've got one creditor who's secured for everything. He's got some of the best security he could ever have for the debt that he's owed. He is going to get repaid. He doesn't want Blackpool to be adversely affected by what he's doing. And indeed, the suggestion is that's why he didn't do it any earlier, even though Marcus Smith offered them the opportunity almost 12 months ago, because he was concerned about the impact of the points deduction and how that would affect the club. We are in a fortunate situation, I think, where even if we get this deduction, I think we've got a great chance of staying in the division, come what may. And so if it has to happen, it's probably not a bad time for it to happen. Hopefully it doesn't, and hopefully we can give the team that extra push, maybe, just maybe, to sneak into the playoffs a little bit like we did way back when under Matt Marn, when we came from nowhere in the last 10 games to sneak in with the last place. We don't know, but I'd like to think that one way or another that points deduction isn't going to be applied. And all we can do, we can get our MPs on board like Gordon Marsden, we can make our representations, Paul Cooper can make his representations, and we can get as many other trusts and clubs to support us to try and make sure that the equitable and fair decision is reached, because there's no way in God's earth we deserve any deduction whatsoever, bearing in mind what we've been through.
Andy Holt's going to be in that meeting.
I want to say to everybody in the room, we've had the most amazing committee on the BST who have really, really worked so hard. Steve, Christy, Tim, everybody, Pauline, please put your hands together and say a great
very much for that, and I'll say again, it's thank you to all of you and everybody out there as well, as Blackpool fans, because we did it together, and that's the whole point. So thank you for coming to this meeting. Who knows, the next one might be inside the football club, you know. Thank you to the village for looking after us today. I think it's been a great venue. We certainly needed it with the numbers. The bar is still open. You can still buy scarves, badges, you can still sign up if you haven't done. I'll never shut up about that. So thank you again, every single one of you. We're going off to do our very last BST duty outside the club at 2 o'clock. And then hopefully see you all on the 9th of March.